Was Alan Tigger. It's good stuff right here. This is what happens at Freaknik. So if you want to see some craziness, show up. Freaknik ++. Anybody? Woo! ShmooCon, anyone? Military invasion. So in Bush, anybody like the Bush administration? All right. Okay, so in 2003, our office recently concluded that the Fourth Amendment has no application to domestic military operations. Ooh. Anybody remember the Posse Comitatus laws? They didn't, apparently. Anyway, so that's kind of crazy one. If they decide the military sends them in and invade your house, the Fourth Amendment didn't apply. I don't expect the current administration to do this, but you never know. And I also think this probably wouldn't hold up in a court. But so in terrorist bombings, 2009 just came out. It was a February case again. The Fourth Amendment's requirement of reasonableness does not, but not the warrant clause, applies to extraterritorial searches and seizures of U.S. citizens. So there were two naturalized U.S. citizens, I think it was Tanzania or Uganda, somewhere. They basically went in and searched their houses without a warrant. They just went over there. I assume they got permission from the government, from the government of whatever country they were searching in, and from the sovereign state, I should say. But they went in, no warrant, searched it, no problem. It had to be reasonable. They can't walk in, rape the wife, and shoot the dog, but they can just walk in and search anything they want, as long as it's reasonable without a warrant. Bite them. Well, so that's all fact-based, but yes, if it was reasonable to shoot the dog, that's fine. But interesting, there's another case on point where they went down to Mexico and searched the guy's house and like drag him up. There's stuff like this, but this is an interesting case. So it's funny, only half the Fourth Amendment applies to citizens, mind you. This is American citizens. These are naturalized citizens if you're outside the state. So if you go outside the country and they just want to come check something out, as long as they get permission from the government, they can just come do it, as long as it's reasonable. So if you don't want to be searched, stay in the U.S. apparently. We're not sure. We'll figure it out later. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if they're not going to see, the foreign can have different laws.
Searches in international waters.
Well, it's probably going to fall under the same thing. They don't need to get permission from the sovereign at that point. Have fun on a boat. So these are some random cases just in recent times that have some funny stuff coming up. Herring v. U.S. This is a Supreme Court case. Exclusionary rule does not apply when the police mistakes are the result of negligence, such as that described here. Basically, in this case, what had happened is a guy came in to get something out of his truck that had been impounded. They went in there, an officer recognized him as a troublemaker, decided to run a warrant search to see if he had any outstanding warrants, because, you know, going to do that, no problem. Searches for it, nothing in his county, calls the county next to him and says, hey, you know, I got this guy in here, I know he causes trouble for both of us. Do you have any outstanding warrants on him? And they said, yes. Well, so the cop pulls him over, arrests him for an outstanding warrant violation, blah, blah, blah. Searches the car, finds an unlicensed firearm. He was a felon, so he couldn't have that. And he had marijuana in the car. So they book him on possession, and they book him on possession of a legal firearm, blah, blah, blah. 5 minutes after the cop had left, the clerk called back and said, whoops, never mind, my mistake. Completely fine. The Supreme Court says not a problem there. It was unintentional, and it was so far removed. They didn't set it up. It was basically a good faith doctrine. So keep that in mind if you have any outstanding warrants, or might. But I usually have problems with these kind of decisions because I think they're subject to abuse, and that's usually what the exclusionary rule is for. It's a harsh punishment. People getting off on technicalities are because of the exclusionary rule. And it's specifically made to prevent abuses by the government. They need to be able to, very, very strict rules, and Scott can attest to this. The government has to have very strict compliance with these things or people get off with crimes. And it's specifically to prevent the government from doing things they shouldn't. Outerz0ne v. Johnson, another Supreme Court case. Reasonable suspicion justified by initial stop and applies to passengers of the car as well. Basically, if you're in a car, whatever, you're screwed. State v. Stevenson, this is a Minnesota case. This is not federal, this is state. Keep this in mind, it is an appellate case, but it's only going to be persuasionary. Defendant excluded from his home by court order had no reasonable expectation of privacy. So he was told not to go home, probably a domestic dispute, you know, something along those lines. Said you can't go back to your house. Since he'd been excluded by a court order, he no longer had an expectation of privacy. The government told him to get out of his house, and then they can go search it. Cool, huh? Interesting.
If you were on probation or parole and they had a right to search your person or your house at any time, and they decided to just bust in one day to search, could they search anyone that was in your house as well?
Probably not. Just because they wouldn't be subject to the same rules as probation. When you go on probation, you're like, I'm making a deal with the government. In this case, Well, yeah, I mean, if he's sitting there smoking a joint and shooting firearms, they can probably grab him then. But disclaimer, I am an attorney. I'm not your attorney. Everybody read this. Everybody agree? Cool. Not legal advice. Don't go out and do anything stupid and be like, Tripp said to do it. Because everyone else around here, you guys are all witnesses. So I didn't say that. Yeah. That's it. Skydog's turn. If you have any questions or anything, we'll grab them outside. I'm more than happy to talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. I'm something.